The day was February 22nd, 2019. The time, 2 o'clock a.m. The event, the Collinsville, Illinois Pokemon Regional Championship. At the time, 2 o'clock in the morning, my alarm went off. I had slept for maybe an hour. I was up late at night talking to my friends who were already in Collinsville, Illinois, testing and trying to figure out the best deck to play for the upcoming tournament. Myself, I was still in Wisconsin. I hadn't left yet. About 5.5 hours of a drive. I wake up, sprint to the shower, get ready, get in my car by like 20 after 2, and make the 5.5 hour drive. About 1 o'clock in the morning, I had finally laid down after what seemed like we had thought of the perfect 60 card list to play. And it's not easy because you have all these previous tournament results, you're looking at spreadsheets, you're trying to figure out the best deck, not only that you're comfortable with, but the best deck to play against what you're expecting the other players to play. It's not always the easiest decision. We recently had a major event that happened, an international event where Zapdos had won. Zapdos from Team Up partnered with Jirachi from Team Up, the holographic rare. At the time of release, was super expensive because of its Stellar Wish ability. It just had so much consistency. It was a great, great card. As I'm driving down, I get a text message from one of my testing partners, Caleb Gedimer. And he says to me at about 6:30 in the morning, we changed the list. And all I'm thinking about is, oh great, I already haven't really played that much. I'm not comfortable with the deck. And now all of a sudden, the 60 cards are changing. Luckily, 56 of the cards are staying the same. So I call Caleb quick and I say, I don't know what to do. I'm only about an hour away and I just have the 60 cards with me. So Caleb says, we'll scramble. We'll figure it out. You need to play the 60 cards. That's really the best way it's going to work. Luckily, I get there right before the tournament starts. They find the 4 cards that I need and I've got the exact 60. What we were playing was Zoroark GX. Zoroark GX from Shining Legends with its trade ability was super, super powerful in the competitive format. Not only that, but we were teaming it up with Lucario GX and Lycanroc GX. And the reason we did that was because Pikachu and Zekrom was thought to be at the time the deck that was going to be played the most, along with Zapdos, which had just won an international event. So I sit down round 1, expecting to do well, expecting to be prepared, and I sit across from a Weavile deck. And I had never tested Weavile. I'm already going without any sleep. I ended up playing really poorly, and I drew. So I went 0-0-1 to start the tournament. Now, if you know anything about competitive Pokemon, you need 19 match points to advance to day 2. I started out with 1. You get 3 points for a win, 0 points for a loss, and 1 point for a tie. You have 9 rounds to get to 19 points. If you do that, you get to advance to day 2. If you do well in day 2, at the time, you had a chance to win $5,000. Now it's gotten even better. Now a regional champion wins $10,000. I had never won a regional championship before, so I was hopeful, but also very nervous. Round number 2, I sat across from Blacephalon. And Blacephalon was like the nightmare deck that you did not want to see if you were running Zoroark Lycanroc. It was an auto loss. I had no chance. I got bodied in game 1 and bodied even faster in game 2. I remember sitting there about 10 minutes into it after I had already lost, and I thought to myself, why did I do this? Why did I drive 5.5 hours on a Saturday morning to come down here and play 9 rounds of Pokemon just to get bodied? Round 3, I went against Lost March. And although I wasn't very comfortable with the matchup, I knew enough to pull off the win. Round 4, finally, I hit a Zapdos. Ended up winning that one as well. And all of a sudden, I'm 2-1-1. Finally, in round 5, after I started climbing up the tables a little bit, I hit a Pikachu and Zekrom. And I was able to just set up real quick, easy win, move to 3-1-1. Round 6, another Pikachu and Zekrom. Easy win. 4-1-1. 3-1-1. 4, I don't know. I don't remember. Regardless, what I do remember is I rattled off 5 wins in a row to go 5-1-1. I was at the best position I had ever been in to make it to day 2 in a tournament, and my phone rings. And unfortunately, some stuff happened. I had to leave. So I ended up dropping at 5-1-1. So the best event that I had ever played in, the event where I finally started feeling comfortable and getting a lot of momentum moving into the last 2 rounds, all I needed to do was go 1-1 in the last 2 rounds, and I would have made day 2, my first ever day 2 at the time. But unfortunately, life happens, and I had to make the drive home. So I dropped at 5-1-1 without any idea of what could have happened. I still think about that. I still think about that day because that was the last regional tournament that I played in. I've played in locals since then. I've played in like cups since then, but I've never played in a regional tournament because I started doing more of the business side of things. I started focusing a lot more on the business side of things. But from that day on, I've still followed the competitive scene super closely because I love competitive Pokemon. Think of it this way. You go to school and you take a 9-hour test. And I know it doesn't sound fun, but you take a 9-hour test where you're constantly thinking the entire day about different subjects because every hour it's a new subject. It's a new way of thinking. You play a different deck and you're strategizing a different deck. The difference is if you do well on that test, you have the potential of winning $10,000 if you win it all. Or you could win other amounts of money, or you could just win prizes and you get points to go to the World Championship where you can win $25,000. So it's a lot of fun. And the game has grown tremendously since then. Now, I'm not saying you need to go and play competitive Pokemon. I'm saying you should give it a chance. Not just give it a chance to see if you like it, but give it a chance because you meet amazing people in the community, first of all. There is nothing like the relationships that you will build just getting to know other people in the community, whether it be people who play casually or ultra competitively. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. You fit at any event. You fit whether you're at a local event, a cup, a challenge, or even a regional event. Like, you still fit, you still belong because there are so many people of all different experience levels who are there. But also, even if you're just a collector, understanding the game and understanding the hobby is huge. And it's huge because you are unlocking all these additional cards that you probably don't even think about because they might not be as flashy, because they might not be a special illustration rare or an alternate art or something that jumps off the page with just a ton of value. They might just be there to exist in the ultra competitive world, and they're super important to competitive players. And the competitive game is growing like crazy. The North American International Championships, which just happened, had just south of 4,000 players, which has never happened before. International Championships were half that size, and now all of a sudden it's grown to 4,000 players. That's insane. That's a lot of cards that these competitive players need. And if you don't know what you're looking for when you're opening up booster packs or when you're buying singles or sorting through your bulk, you could miss out on a lot of cards that could really help you grow your collection. And not only that, Pokemon has done a great job of reprinting all these cards and repurposing a lot of cards that keeps the cost levels of the game down. You can build ultra competitive decks for under $100 all the time, which never used to be that way with Pokemon, but that's really how it is now. And it's this wonderful, wonderful thing. And if you have extra cards in your collection that you know produce value, those can really go a long way in helping you grow your collection. In today's video, we're going to talk about some of those bulk cards. Not only does you moving those cards help keep those costs down for the competitive players, it also helps you build your collection because you might be sitting on a $20 ace spec without even realizing it. You might be sitting on a handful of $20 ace specs without even realizing it. And those $20 ace specs that maybe you have a lot of extras of, you could be trading in, you could be selling off, and then that could help you find one of those chase cards that you really need. Or maybe you're somebody who's really upset about the way that the market is right now. Well, if you have 5 $20 ace specs that you can move off of, that you didn't even realize were in your bulk box, that helps you bring that cost down from a price point that's above MSRP to a level where it's well below MSRP. So it's really important to be aware of what's going on in the competitive game. And we're going to go over some of these cards here. You can find a lot of these cards on your own just by searching through TCG Player, or you can go to a site like limitlesstcg.com to see what is doing really well in the current competitive format. But to keep things easy, I am going to talk about these cards, and you can kind of guess what these cards are. And I'll give you a minute to kind of guess as I'm explaining what these cards are, and then they'll pop up on the screen. You can see what they've done over the last few months. So the first one that we're going to look at is an A-Spec, that A-Spec that I was just talking about, which is just below $20 right now, but it's currently going up like crazy. It's up 358% over the past 3 months because it has been doing so well in competitive play. Not only is it doing well in a lot of Grimmsnarl decks that are out there, but it was just in the most recently winning list of the North American International Championships in the Gardevoir EX deck. So the Gardevoir EX deck is starting to go towards this A-Spec rather than Unfair Stamp or Prime Catcher. This one being up 358% to almost $18 is Secret Box. Secret Box coming in from Twilight Masquerade is an A-Spec that has just exploded in price. It was a $3 card 3 months ago, but because of the success that it had at the North American International Championships, it's done really well, and it's shot up like crazy because it is a deck that a lot of competitive players might need for the World Championships. Now, it was over $18 at one point. It settled down a little bit, but still doing extremely well. The next card that we're going to look at is also an A-Spec that started being used a little bit more in competitive play. It's up about 103% over the past 3 months. Now, it's not as expensive as that Secret Box that we were talking about. It's only sitting at about $4 right now, but it was below $2 just a few months ago. And I understand you're not going to build this massive collection selling $4 A-Specs, but if you had a bunch of them sitting in your bulk box, and we talk about liquidity all the time and how quickly something moves, an A-Spec like this, which has done really well because it was featured in one of the best Pokemon player, one of the most decorated Pokemon card players list at Worlds, and that's Tord. Very consistent. Played a Dragapult deck with cards like Latias EX, Blood Moon Ursaluna, something that focused a lot more on just straight Dragapult. This A-Spec has done extremely well and has shot up almost 103%, and that A-Spec is Neo Upper Energy from Temporal Forces. So it's not something that's super expensive at $4, but if you have a handful of them sitting around, that's a $20, $25 card that you can add to your collection just by moving off of those Neo Upper Energies. The next card that we're going to look at, we've covered a lot already on this channel. We've talked about it a lot. It came out just before last year's World Championships, and it's probably the most used EX card throughout the current meta. It's not something that's featured by itself in a deck, but it's something that just really helps consistency. Now, it's only up about 3% over the past 3 months. It was at about $16 and then fell to about $12 at the beginning of May, but now it's climbed back up, sitting at about $16 right now. So relatively flat over the past 3 months, but started to come back a little bit more. And it's not something that has been out there a lot because it hasn't been printed a lot. It was printed in Shrouded Fable, but then didn't really get any reprints. We didn't have it in Prismatic Evolutions, much like Japan had it in Terrestrial Festival. The only additional copies of it that we got were in the Dragapult Battle deck, and that card is Pheasantipede EX. Something with its flip the script ability really helps speed up consistency for a lot of decks in the format. Like I said, only up about 3% right now, but definitely a card that if you have extras of, you want to be able to move off of because it can really go a long way in helping grow your collection. The next card we're going to look at is an EX that is a little bit more valuable than a lot of the bulkier ones that are out there, but it doesn't get a whole lot of love and it doesn't get talked about a whole lot. It came out in Surging Sparks. It's only up about 18% over the past 3 months, and it did actually spike up closer to $8. Now it's sitting at about $6.61, so up about $18 over the past 3 months. It's from Surging Sparks, and it's not Pikachu EX, but it's something that is used a lot in Dragapult decks because it just is good for as a one-of to help balance off certain decks that you might be going against, and that card is Latias EX. So Latias EX does have a place currently in the competitive meta. If you're sitting on extras of those, that's an extra $7 bill that you can be adding to your collection. If you have collection goals and you've got a few extras of these, these are not really bulk EXs, and there are a lot of bulk EXs. You look at a set like Destined Rivals that just came out, where every single double rare in the set is basically selling as a bulk EX, and then you have a card like Latias EX, which is selling for close to $7. Definitely something you want to take advantage of in the current market. The next card that we're going to look at, this one we have talked about a lot. This one up about 34% over the past 3 months, sitting at about $3.75. It's one of the most played trainer cards in the current meta because it does, again, really help with consistency. But the big thing that has kept this cost up a little bit higher is the fact that it just hasn't been reprinted a lot. Again, another card that got printed in Shrouded Fable, but the only additional times that we've seen it has been in build and battle decks, and the build and battle decks that we've seen have been few and far between. We haven't gotten copies of this in Destined Rivals. There were no additional copies of this in Journey Together. So it's been a while since we've seen additional copies of this, and that card is Night Stretcher. It was about $4.25 recently. It's come back down a little bit, so it's sitting at $3.75. If you have reverse hollow variants of it, those would be worth a little bit more. The next card that we're going to look at, and again, this one has gone down a little bit. It's actually down about 15% over the past few months because it has fallen out of favor in competitive play. This is another trainer card that at one point in time was close to $2. Now it's at about $1.50, but we haven't seen it for a while. It was originally printed in Scarlet and Violet base. So it might rotate out next year if we don't get another copy of it. So it's dropped in price quite a bit. It's fallen out of favor due to popular decks like Gardevoir and Dragapult really kind of taking over the meta, and that's Pokegear 3.0. So Pokegear 3.0 started making a bit of a climb after last year's Worlds, and it was like a 30-cent card at that time. Went over $1 recently. Now it's sitting at about $1.45, $1.50. However, safe to remember, or important to remember, that if you have multiple copies of this, moving off of them now before it gets to a point where it does rotate is going to be really important, because by that time it's only going to be worth 3, 4, 5 cents. So definitely something you want to move off of now. The next card that we're going to look at is another trainer card that did see a lot of success a while ago and then fell basically to a bulk uncommon. In April, it was sitting at about 45 cents. It's gone up about 115% since then, sitting just over $1. It's at about $1.16. But the reason that it really started growing is because it is used occasionally in Gardevoir, but the rise of Joltik Box has really seen this card kind of explode in price. And that card is Bravery Charm. Now, not only did you find Bravery Charm quite a bit in Paldea Evolved, but you probably saw quite a bit of it in Build and Battle kits as well, in some structure decks or starter decks as well. Because of that, you might have a lot of extra copies of Bravery Charm hanging out in your bulk, and now's the time that you really want to move off of those if you have a store that you can trade them into, or maybe you have a TCG Player account or an eBay account that you can move off of some of these. Definitely, again, a way to really help grow your collection. Then we're going to look at a special energy card that just recently came out, not really used in the meta at all, but when it comes to Destined Rivals, this is the only card, the only bulk card that really has any ancillary value associated with it, and it's holding decent despite the fact that cards like Team Rocket's Mewtwo and Team Rocket's Crobat haven't done anything in competitive play, but the potential for those cards to eventually do something is what's making this card hold a little bit of value, and that is Team Rocket's Energy. So up about 35% since the release of the set. It's sitting at about $1.04 right now, which is down from its high point. It was at $1.80 not too long ago, so it has lost a little bit of its value. But again, if you're opening up Destined Rivals and you come across a Team Rocket's Energy, definitely something you want to at least put to the side, even if you don't want to move off of it right now, just because in the future you might want to move off of it to add other pieces to your collection. We're going to look at a couple more yet. The next one is another special energy card that's seen a ton of growth over the past few months. So it's up about 493% over the last 3 months. Now that's substantial. And the reason it's up that much is because it was a 10-cent card to begin with back in April. So it's grown quite a bit. But we're really starting to see a lot of success in this card in decks like Dragapult, and then the newer variant of Dragapult with Charizard EX, which has seen a lot of success, not only in the US, but also overseas as well. This card was originally printed in Paldea Evolved, and that is Luminous Energy. So Luminous Energy is definitely a card that you probably have a lot of extras of if you opened up some Paldea Evolved, or if you opened up any Build and Battle kits, because it has been printed quite a bit in those Build and Battle kits. But Luminous Energy has done a lot of things in the current format. Definitely a card you want to make sure that you have extras of, or pull those extras out of your bulk boxes. And finally, the last card that we're going to look at, and we can do more of these, is a card that was originally released in Twilight Masquerade. You don't get a whole lot of love for holographic rares anymore because every single pack has a holographic rare in it, so it's very difficult for those holographic rares to have any sort of value. It's actually statistically proven that holographic rares are easier to pull than any common or uncommon card in every single Scarlet and Violet set. And the reason behind that is because the amount of holographic rares that exist in a set are far fewer than the amount of common and uncommons in a set. But since the pull rates are you get one in every booster pack, you're going to pull more holographic rares of a specific card than you are of a specific common or uncommon. So this card is really probably the most used card in the current meta, one of the most broken cards in the format. It's got an amazing ability which lets you move damage counters around. It's up about 150% over the past 3 months, and that card is Monkey Dory. Now this card was reprinted, so that one does have a little bit of value to it as well. Not quite as much as the one from Twilight Masquerade, which is selling for about $1.10. But again, up about 150% over the past 3 months. Are you going to get rich off of selling a bunch of dollar cards? No, absolutely not. But this isn't necessarily about getting rich. This is about decreasing the value or the cost of the cards that you're kind of chasing, or the cards maybe that you're missing from your collection. Or maybe you do want to get involved in playing the game. So it's about getting these cards out of your bulk so that way you can build the decks that you want to build, or the decks that are doing well in the competitive format. Not every card is going to have a ton of value associated with it, but these cards are good in competitive play, and because of that, they do have some value associated with it. So you want to be able to take advantage of that to help build your collection, but also help the competitive players be able to find cards for cheaper prices. As long as these cards continue to get put on the secondary market, that gives competitive players the opportunity to continue to buy these at decent prices. So you're kind of helping out in both worlds. So hopefully you did well on this little test or quiz or whatever it is that you want to call it. I really love talking about this stuff because this stuff really makes me excited. The competitive game is so much fun. I highly recommend checking out a local game store or going to a local event, whether it just be a casual league to get a feel for your community and decks to play, or you can just download Pokemon Pocket or TCG Live and just get your feet wet, kind of testing the waters and seeing what decks you might like to play, or seeing how fun the game can actually be. Something that I highly recommend. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please hit that subscribe button down below, leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm, but ultimately thank you just for giving me the time to sit here and talk and tell my story. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. I'll be back soon with another video. Till next time, peace!